Take 4. Hopefully you see this take. The other 3 takes were a disaster. 2 of them crashed, 1 had no sound. Testing, can you hear me? All right, so on today's show, I'm going to go over the monetary policy report that was released yesterday. A warning that shit's going to get worse. All over, not just for us. And this cool chart from RBC. First up, shit's going to get worse. Look, the one thing that's accurate from the Trump administration is that all this stuff is going to rewrite how world trade happens, to the detriment of the United States. Look, I'm going to assume that Mr. Trump has never been in a fight, that he's never been punched in the face before. Because people who've been in fights, they try to avoid fights, because being punched in the face is very unpleasant. And people punch you back. China's punching back and they ain't playing. They are absolutely positively going to destroy the United States. And the US military may be formidable, but it relies on Chinese rare earth minerals to function. Not to mention, China is going to look at other providers for its necessities, like oil. As long as this administration is in charge, things are going to get worse before they get better. Thankfully for us, we're not in the United States. So we'll be okay. We can figure it out. They're fucked. And some of you want to become the... Go live down there. Go live the dream. Japan is worried, and I'm going to show you why. Exclusive, Japan finance minister deeply concerned over Trump tariff impact. Because Japan's going to suffer greatly. And this is where the RBC chart comes in. The RBC released this yesterday, preparing for the downside. Could Canadian federal finances withstand a trade war? The short answer is yes. There's so much talk about our debt to GDP ratio, but there's a net debt to GDP ratio because countries owe us money, like the US. And our net debt to GDP ratio is one of the best in the world, the best in the G7. Switzerland is better than us. Given all their banks, that makes sense. Luxembourg is better than us. And that over there is Denmark. You know, Denmark. They kept control of their oil. They didn't give it away to private companies. Denmark. But like I said, Canada is the best in the G7. Can you spot Japan on this list? If you guessed this really scary one, you were right. Japan's net debt to GDP ratio is 154.1%. They are terrified. And they hold a whole bunch of US debt. And if shit goes bad, they may have to sell some of that US debt to pay down their own debt. Suffice to say, things could get bad for the entire G7, but luckily we're in good shape. Because you know how it works. If things go bad for you, and there's a whole bunch of people out there that owe you money, you go collecting your money. By the way, I know some are going to ask. There's the US right there. Their net debt to GDP ratio is 95.7%. It's not good. All right, the monetary policy report was released yesterday. I'm not going to bore you with this report because it is a snoozer. I'll summarize it. There's 2 scenarios. One is bad. One's a little bit worse. What are the 2 scenarios? First scenario is the United States stops with this ridiculous tariff war and we just deal with the fallout. That's the bad. The other scenario is that the United States does not stop with this stupid tariff war and everything gets worse. No matter how you slice it, economic activity is going to slow down, which is why did we hold the rates? I'll get to that in a sec. Now, the Bank of Canada is concerned that a prolonged trade war is going to cause an increase in inflation, and they're seeing the inflation go up to around 3%. But remember, the number one cause of inflation since we started this rate thing has been the rates. As of yesterday, 28 straight months where the mortgage interest cost is the number one cause of inflation. Don't get me started. And then the end of the report is the carbon tax. And what they say there kind of contradicts the rest of the report. First up, let me show you what the inflation would look like if we had gotten rid of the carbon tax in 2024. There. The Bank of Canada has confirmed that the carbon tax accounts for 0.7% of the inflation if you remove the entire tax. So if we had killed the tax at the beginning of 2024, this is what the inflation would have looked like. And you can see, mid-year, we dropped below the 2% target. And it's been pretty slow since. So yeah, we started cutting rates too late. I told you so. Now the carbon tax is gone. And so many people were like, well, the Liberals are just going to bring it back. No. Mark Carney does not like regressive taxes, and that's what the consumer carbon tax is. It's a regressive tax that doesn't work. Bringing in Chinese EVs will work. Way better than the carbon tax will. But I digress. Let me get back to this. With the carbon tax gone, the inflation is 0.7 points below target. And they knew this yesterday. And this doesn't take into account the cheaper oil and gasoline. And the rate itself is the number one driver of inflation. And they're worried about inflation from the trade war. In my humble opinion, for the rest of this year, they're going to look at a 1.3% target, not a 2% target. And we're still going to be below that target. I think yesterday's rate hold was a mistake. The next rate announcement is in June. We shall see.